So a few years ago, my first year in youth ministry, we took a mission trip to Belize. And it was this really cool thing, and we were talking about when we were in Belize, we were going to go to this, I guess the area where everybody vacations to. I don't even know what you call it, but that was like on our last day. And I was told that there is this art to buying things. It's called haggling. I don't even know if this is appropriate to talk from the pulpit, but I'm going to, okay? But anyway, and so I was told that the price is never the price. And so I went there and I thought, wow, this is a game. And everybody looked at me like I was a horrible person, which is probably fair. But anyway, so let's say it was like $10. I was like, I'll give you $5. And then we work our way through. And then eventually you get to the point where you say, nah, I don't need it. And then they come after you, and then you get it. Anyway, and so I think it's talking, when we're looking and thinking about haggling and bringing down the price to where it's more affordable. And I think the example I took from that is, well, I don't want to get scammed, but I also want a good deal, right? And so there's the in-between. And this morning, we're really going to be talking about our haggling down the numbers. Bringing down the numbers to a more acceptable value. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk about the subject of our world today. Does anybody ever watch the television, watch the news, and you stop and you wonder where all the good people are? Has anybody ever wondered that? Has anybody looked at the news and said, where are all the Christians at these days? And we see everything that unfolds on the television before our eyes. And we stop and think, man, I wish somebody would do something. Where are the morals at? And sometimes it reminds me, for some of y'all are going to be right at home. I'm going to take you way back. Those old Westerns. You know what I'm talking about? Where the bad guy comes walking into town and he does like the weird walk like this, and like there's the shaking of the whatchamacallit on the ground, and then what happens is you see all of the people, they're out, but the moment they see him come into town, what happens? They run, they scatter, and they hide, and they look through the windows. And they're waiting for the hero to come. And I wonder if we have become those who have ran and scattered into the inns, waiting for the hero to come. So let's keep both of those things in mind as we turn in the Bibles and we open up our text to Genesis. Oh, wait, before we get there, go ahead and start turning to Genesis chapter 18. But before we do that, while you're turning there, let's get a little bit of context in. So what's going on here is at the beginning of this text, Abraham sees 3 men standing nearby. And what happens is he runs to show hospitality. He goes in and he starts to take care of them. He says, I'll water your stuff. I'll make sure you have food, and we'll get the finest things for you. Now, what we need to understand is that hospitality in that early age was very important. Actually, in Genesis 19, you could walk away with the idea that maybe hospitality is more important than the safety of your family. Because when you're under their roof, you are now protected by them. And so your family name is on the line. And so it's important that we understand this idea of hospitality, especially during that era. Now, what we find out is that these 3 men are angels. And they're coming to the area, and they're going to give news. And what also somehow, and I haven't quite figured this one out how it works yet, but it just does, God magically appears, okay? He's there. So God appears with these 3 angels, and then what he does is he goes to Sarah, and he tells them that, hey, you're going to have a child. And what happens? She laughs. She laughs at God, okay? And so she laughs because she's in so much disbelief that she is at such an age. We're told from a couple weeks ago that she would be 90-ish when Isaac would be born. And so it's funny to her that there would even be a possibility. Don't mess with her. Don't tease her, because how can she believe something that has not happened in 90 plus years? And so she laughs. And what happens? God is in disbelief that she would laugh at him. And so God goes to Abraham and says, how is it that she could laugh at this? How could she do this? And he cannot believe that Sarah would laugh. And what does Sarah say? I didn't laugh. I didn't laugh. No, I saw you. You laughed. And it's from there, that's when we're going to pick back up in our text. And so if you have your Bibles, if you'll look down to Genesis 18, we're going to be starting in verse 16 and going through 33. So Genesis 18, starting in verse 16, it says this: when the men got up to leave, they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him, for I have chosen him, so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the ways of the Lord, by doing what is right and just. So the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised. Then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin so grievous, that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. And the men turned away and went towards Sodom. But Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham approached him and said, will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? The Lord said, if I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake. Then Abraham spoke up again. Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous people is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city for a lack of 5 people? If I find 45 there, he said, I will not destroy it. Once again he spoke to him. What if I only 40 are found there, he said. For the sake of 40, I will not do it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there? He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. Abraham said, now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there? He said, for the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just one more time. What if only 10 can be found there? He answered, for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. When the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, he left, and Abraham returned home. So we see the text begins pretty simple. The angels are getting ready to leave and go towards Sodom to fulfill their mission. But what's going on here is it seems God seems to be conflicted, because he knows that Abraham is his chosen man. With him, he's going to be the father of many nations, and nations will come from him and they will prosper. But there's a problem. Abraham has family near Sodom and Gomorrah. Am I going to tell him what's going to happen? Because he has family there. Are we going to tell him? And so he doesn't know. It seems like there's this conflict that's going on inside. But ultimately what he tells him and he decides is the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so grievous, is so bad from what is reaching me that something has to be done. The sin that is going on, the sin that is boiling under the surface is so bad that God realizes he has to do something. Now, we're not going to get into Genesis 19, but I will give you some brief examples, and you can look and see for yourself about how bad the outcry was. But the first thing that I think about whenever I'm reading Sodom and Gomorrah and the atrocities that are taking place is I think back to the men after the angels are staying in the home. And they come in and they bang on the door. And they say, give us these men so that we can have sex with them. Is that morality has gone so far to whatever side you want to say, that we're going to go out there and rape people. We're going to pull them out of the home and we're going to do that. That's where the sin had gotten to at this point in Sodom and Gomorrah. And so those are some of the things that we see. And so I do recommend going and looking at Genesis 19 and looking at what is going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. But before we get there, the angels begin to head towards Sodom and Gomorrah. And we know that God is there. So if I am to understand my math, I think, I could be wrong here, there's 5 individuals, there's 3 angels, and there's God, and then there's Abraham. My math may be wrong, but that's what I'm envisioning, and that's what I've envisioned for years. They're heading off to do their mission, and yet Abraham stays and he asks God a question. Now, Abraham realizes, that he's nothing more than a speck. What we're told is that he's no more than ashes and dust. And yet he goes to God and he says, well, what if there are 50 righteous people that are found in this land? Will you destroy the righteous with the wicked? Are you going to destroy the lives of innocent people just to get back at those who are wicked? And what does God say? He says, I will not destroy Sodom and Gomorrah if I find 50 people who were righteous and still hold on to His name and His word and His glory. And then Abraham realizes, you know what? He didn't destroy me. So hear me out, God. What if there are 5 left? What if there are 5 less than 50? Are you going to destroy those cities over 5 people? Are you really going to be such a God that just destroys the good and the bad altogether over 5 people? And what does God say? He says, well, if there's 45 people, I will not destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And he continues down and he says, well, what if there are 30 people? Surely you will not destroy these 2 cities over 30 people, would you? And God says, no, for the sake of 30 people, I will not destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And then he goes down and, well, what about 20 people? Reminds me of myself in Belize. Anyway, what if there are 20 people? Are you going to destroy them over 20 people? Those 20 people are still faithful. Those 20 people still have a chance. Are you going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah over 20 people? And then he gets them down to 10. Are you going to destroy these two great cities if there are 10 people who are still righteous? If there are 10 people who have not bowed down to these foreign gods and this immorality and everything else that is going on, are you going to destroy them when there might be a chance for these 10 people to make a difference and try and turn things around? And God says, no, if there are 10 people, I will not destroy these two nations. Now, ultimately, we know the story. There were not 10 people in those two cities. But we do see the compassion of Abraham there. We do see the compassion that these two cities might be saved. There might be hope. There might be a hope of a future. Yes, the city was destroyed, but we do see that there is growth in Abraham. And I love when I see growth in individuals. Don't you? That, whenever we're talking to people and we've seen somebody grow in their faith, that there is growth in maturity there, that's all of a sudden we're no longer just caring about ourselves, but we're starting to think about other people. We see that growth in Abraham. That doesn't mean there's not failures, and we're going to talk about that next week. But we do see growth here in Abraham, that he's willing to bargain and speak with God and go to God in thinking about Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, is he probably thinking about Lot and his family? Absolutely he is. How could he not? But he comes before God and says, there might be hope. Now, unfortunately, there was not. And as we know the story, the cities are destroyed and Lot's wife is turned into a pillar of salt. But if we're to take away one thing from this text today, it's this. As long as there are people who still hold close to the truth, there is a chance. I don't want to say help. I don't like that word anymore. There's a chance to save this broken world. As long as there are still people who have not bowed down and are not saying that this is just how it is, and they're not hiding in the hotel rooms and thinking it's so bad, if we're still willing to go out and serve and find ways, there is hope for this broken world. Because what did God say? He said, for these two horribly wicked cities, if there are 10 people, I will not destroy it. I'm looking at more than 10 people in this auditorium right now. Because as God shared with Abraham, as long as there are people who do not bow down to wickedness, there is still hope for our fallen world. There's still hope. Yes, I turn on the news just like every one of you, and I see missiles coming and crashing into buildings. I've seen children growing up without fathers. I've seen people taken away way too young. I have seen the atrocities and the horrible things of this world, but I still know that there is a God that's up in heaven and serves us all. And a God who said, I love this world so much that I'm not finished with it. I'm going to send my son to die and be raised and resurrected again so that there is an opportunity and a chance for others to know that there is a God who loves them. There is hope for our world. And so what that means, though, is there's some things that we have to do. Because unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of being spectators. We're over there hiding in buildings and like the Westerns looking out and saying, where is John Wayne? You're the John Wayne of the story here. It's up to us to share the truth. It's up to us to go out and love people. It's up to us to show that Christianity is more than what the television tells us Christianity is. But if we're not sharing truth, then who's sharing the news? Well, I think we all know. You know, I've been working out again, and I always hate that place called the gym. But anyway, I'm working out with Neil. He's one of our newer members here, and he was sharing with me about a conversation he had with a Muslim. And I'm going to butcher this because I don't remember the whole story. I should have written it down, okay? There's a couple things. He said, "I don't understand you Christians. You're so scared to offend people that Christianity is not doing anything. It's like we don't want to stand up and defend what the truth and the faith is and what the truth of the Bible is." And he stopped and he said, that makes a lot of sense. And one thing I will say he did mention on the end of that conversation, I have to do the whole thing, right? He said that's one thing he loves about the Church of Christ, is that we're willing to share truth. And I think we've got to continue to share truth. And he also went on, and I don't remember if I could say this or not, so sorry. But he was telling me about that he's got one of his best friends in the whole world is homosexual. And what he has done is he shares with him what the Bible says. And he's sharing with him truth every moment. And what happens is his friend will say, "You know what, you're right." And it's interesting what happens there is because his friend knows that he's sharing it with him out of love, he's able to have conversations. Do you know what happens? What had to happen first? There had to be a friendship there first to be able to share what was going on. But because of that, it's opening doors and it's having him think and process. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with that relationship, but it is interesting to see people who go out and live this out. So the first thing is we cannot be afraid to share truth. I think the second thing is that means we cannot live in the fear with our walls built so high that we have no contact with anybody outside of these four walls. And so we've got to be willing to go out and talk to people that do not look like us, they do not act like us, they may not even believe the same things that we believe at the moment. Because how else are we going to have an impact on somebody's life if they always believe the same things we do? I mean, I love people who agree with me, okay? I mean, it's great. Whenever you guys go up there and you shower me with compliments, it feels good. But sometimes I need truth, right? If I'm doing something wrong, if I'm not being a good husband, I would pray that one of you guys would push me aside and say, "Hey, you need to be doing this." Right? And so we have to be willing to look at our circle. And so when we get down to where do we begin with this process, it's simple. How many people do you know in your life that maybe you have a conversation with at least once or twice a year? We can do a survey here. I love them. That do not attend church. Anybody? Okay, this group over here, y'all are, wow, get out there, okay? But for over here, I saw quite a few hands. Now, you're wondering, how can you make an impact? It's simple. You go and talk to the people that are in your circle, in your life, that you have a relationship, and you can share with them truth out of love. Because here's the thing, I had a professor who said this all the time in college, and we're about to come to a close. He used to say this every time when I'd go into his class. It's really simple. Are you ready? He says, if this is true, and I don't know, I hope you guys believe that this is true. But if this is true, and we believe what this says, And we believe that if we do not follow this and we do not accept Jesus and we do not follow Christ, that there are going to be many people who do not make it to heaven. If we believe this is true, and we believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and that He came and He died for us, and what that means then is if He died for us, that means we don't want anybody to not spend eternity with the Father. So if we believe this is true, then we got to get out. We've got to expand our walls. We've got to expand our horizons. We've got to be willing to have some uncomfortable conversations. Why? Not because we want to judge them, but we want them to be a part of the kingdom. There's a difference. There's a difference. I want to see everybody make it to the kingdom. I know not everybody will, but I want to see everybody in heaven because God allows me to be part of the family. And if He has allowed me to be part of the family, then I want you to be a part of the family. I want to meet your family members in heaven. I want to meet your friends in heaven. I want to meet the random people that we try to walk away from because it gets a little too weird out there on the street in heaven. But that means that for me, I have to get out of my comfort zone and love people. So don't be afraid to go out and share truth because we have to. We have to.